Good day to you all, and welcome once again to the Rock Fellowship Devotion Time for Thursday, December 8th, 2022. My name is Matt Grantham, and as always, it is my privilege to share my heart with you this day. So now, with introductions and salutations out of the way, what do you say we jump right in and take a look-see at this devotion together? And maybe by the end, we'll find out just what it is that God is telling us. Let's begin by looking at Romans chapter 13, verses 11 and 12. And that, knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep. For now is our salvation nearer than when we believed. The night is far spent. The day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness and let us put on the armor of light. My beloved brothers and sisters, we need to grasp what God is telling us through Paul's pen. If Paul was telling the church 2,000 years ago that the night was far spent, isn't it reasonable to believe, even more so now, that the day is dawning soon? And isn't it reasonable to acknowledge that if they needed to wake out of sleep, that even more so now, we need to wake out of sleep as well? And if it was urgent then, isn't it reasonable to acknowledge that it is even more urgent now? I ask these questions, but in all honesty, we all know the answer. Because if it was true in Paul's day, it's even truer now. Folks, we have an obligation to share the gospel with the lost world because the day is at hand. The first book of the Bible that I ever read was the last book of the Bible, Revelation. And when I read that book, there was a sense of urgency, and rightfully so. Because chapter 1, verse 3 states, "Blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand." Friends, what happened to us? After all, didn't we sense the urgency when we called on Christ to save us? Sure we did. So then, why don't we sense that urgency now in sharing Christ with the world? I'll tell you why. It's because we as a whole have become lukewarm. We have become Laodicea. Comfort and convenience have become our God, and it's uncomfortable to share the gospel with others. The devil's got us on the run. We might get fired if we witness at work. We might lose our friend if we share Christ. It might cost us our relationship if we tell someone that without Christ it's hell to pay. And so here we are, neither hot nor cold, and it makes God want to vomit. Shame on us. So, Matt, why are you telling us this? Good question. Let me share a short story with you. This past weekend was not a good weekend for me. I mean, I had plans, but because of choices that I had made, my plans changed. And there were consequences that affected not only me, but others as well. So what happened? Well, I had a broken tooth. And prior to Thanksgiving, I thought it was infected. So I went to the dentist. After x-rays were taken, I was told that there was no infection. So I put off having an extraction until after Thanksgiving. Then I put it off until after mine and Cindy's anniversary. Then I was going to put it off until after Feed the Soul Sunday, this past Sunday. I put it off until it was too late. Saturday afternoon, my tooth began to ache, and it ached, and then it began to throb. I was taking it just about anything and everything to get relief, but to no avail. So then Sunday morning comes. There's no way I can make it to church. I went to urgent care, which stated that they don't cover tooth pain and that I would have to pay out of pocket. At this point, I didn't care. So now I pay extra because I procrastinated. I get my antibiotics and I take one before leaving the pharmacy. I get home, but then I get a headache. It was so bad that it made me sick to my stomach. So there I was, tooth throbbing, headache making me sick, and no relief in sight. Nope, can't make it to Feed the Soul service. So Pastor Ron had to fill in for me. And the funny thing is, I was supposed to fill in for him. But God had it all taken care of. There's no panic in heaven, only planning. Like I said, there I was, sick, curled up in my chair, laying on the floor, kneeling by the couch, laying in bed, just trying to get in a position where I could get some relief. But there was none. I just had to endure the pain until it subsided. All I could do was moan and groan. But God was gracious to me. And in the early morning hours, He took away my headache and nausea, and I was able to keep food and liquids down. So, as Proverbs 24:32 states, then I saw, and I considered it well. I looked upon it and received instruction. A verse came to mind. 1 Corinthians 2:9. But as it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him. But get this, the contrary is also true. Eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that hate or reject him. I kept putting off the inevitable. Isn't that the way that man is? Isn't that what he does? I'll get saved when I clean up my act. I've got tomorrow. Friends, we're not promised tomorrow, and we know that. So there's that sense of urgency because the day is at hand. We've lost that sense of urgency. I don't know is it because, well, I know I'm saved. I know where I'm going to spend eternity. But shouldn't we care enough about the souls of men out there? Isn't that our job? Isn't that what we're called to do? To warn them? To be a watchman? Yes. Yes, it is. My dear brothers and sisters, I wouldn't wish the pain and anguish that I went through on my worst enemy. I could not imagine having to endure that for all eternity. And yet, it is nothing compared to what God tells us about hell. Hell, the fire that shall never be quenched, that place of torment, the place that was prepared for the devil and his angels, not for us, where the worm dies not, where there's wailing and gnashing of teeth. And then hell gets cast into the lake of fire, which the Bible says is the second death. I mean, that's it. It also tells us, for those that are, the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever. And get this, they have no rest, day nor night. Let me tell you, while that tooth was throbbing and that headache was pounding, I couldn't get any rest. I might have dozed for a little bit, but I could not get no rest. I could not find a position of relief. I was in agony for those hours. And yet, compared to an eternity in hell, it was nothing. Nothing. And so God reminded me of the urgency to get out there and share Christ with others so that they don't have to suffer. To share with them the urgency. Today is the day of salvation. If today you hear his voice, harden not your heart. Oh, my word. What needs to happen in our lives that will cause us to share the gospel with the lost and warn them? Someone shared Christ with us. We need to share Christ with others. It's the Christmas season, isn't it? Why not give the gift that keeps on giving? Give the gift of the gospel. After all, what is a soul worth? Is it worth losing an hour of sleep? Is it worth installing pipe to heat a building in Mongolia? Is it worth a tithe or an offering? As my fellow soldiers, are you willing to make such sacrifices? David Livingstone said, if you have men who will only come if they know it is a good road, I don't want them. I want men who will come if there is no road at all. Is that you? Will you do what God's called you to do? Will you go where God has called you to go? There are souls out there that need to hear the gospel. Now is the time. So let's wake up. Let's gear up. Let's mount up and let's go. Let's follow the command of our captain to go ye with urgency. And let's go out there and tell people about the great things that God has done for us. Because the day is at hand. I love you all. I hope you have a great day. Take care and God bless.